Mandaeans are an ethno-religious group indigenous to the alluvial plain of southern Mesopotamia and are followers of Mandaeism, a Gnostic religion. The Mandaeans were originally native speakers of Mandaic, a Semitic language that evolved from Eastern Middle Aramaic, before many switched to colloquial Iraqi Arabic and modern Persian. Mandaic is mainly preserved as a liturgical language. During the century's first decade, the indigenous Mandaic community of Iraq, which used to number 60–70,000 persons, collapsed in the aftermath of the Iraq War of 2003. Most of the community relocated to nearby Iran, Syria and Jordan, or formed diaspora communities beyond the Middle East. The other indigenous community of Iranian Mandaeans has also been dwindling as a result of religious persecution over that decade. History. Origin. There are several indications of the ultimate origin of the Mandaeans. Early religious concepts and terminologies recur in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and Jordan has been the name of every baptismal water in Mandaeism. This connection with early baptismal sects in the eastern Jordan region and the elements of Western Syrian in the Mandaean language attest to their Levantine origin. The ultimate Jewish origin of the Mandaeans can still be found despite the vehement polemics against the Jews in Mandaean literature, in which Moses is a false prophet and Adonai is an evil god. There are fewer indications of a relation between early Christians and Mandaeans, which make the connection more problematic. Some scholars, including Kurt Rudolph, connect the early Mandaeans with the Jewish sect of the Nazareans. The emigration of early Mandaeans from the Jordan Valley took place, the latest at the 2nd century, due to pressure from Orthodox Jews. The migrants first went to Haran in Assyria and entered the southern provinces of Mesopotamia during the 3rd century. It appears that Mani, the founder of Manichaeism, was partly influenced by the newcomers. The Mandaeans had also hostile relations with the Byzantine Church and the Babylonian Jews. Early Persian periods. A number of ancient Aramaic inscriptions dating back to the 2nd century CE were uncovered in Elymais. Although the letters appear quite similar to the Mandaean ones, it is doubtful whether the inhabitants of Elymais were Mandaeans. Under Parthian and early Sasanian rule, foreign religions were tolerated. The situation changed by the ascension of Bahram I in 273, who under the influence of the zealous Zoroastrian high priest Kartir persecuted all non-Zoroastrian religions. It is thought that this persecution encouraged the consolidation of Mandaean religious literature. The persecutions instigated by Kartir seems to temporarily erase Mandaeans from recorded history. Traces of their presence can still, however, be found in the so-called Mandaean magical bowls and lead strips, which were produced from the 3rd to the 7th centuries. Islamic caliphates. The Mandaeans reappear at the beginning of the Muslim conquest of Mesopotamia, when their head of the people, Anush son of Danka, appears before Muslim authorities showing them a copy of the Ginza Rabbah, the Mandaean holy book, and proclaiming the chief Mandaean prophet to be John the Baptist, who is also mentioned in the Quran. The connection with the Quranic Sabians provided them acknowledgement as people of the book, a legal minority religion within the Muslim Empire. They appear to have flourished during the early Islamic period, as attested by the voluminous expansion of Mandaic literature and canons. Tibni it is particularly noted as an important scribal center. Yaqut al-Hamawi describes Tib as a town inhabited by Nabatean Sabians who consider themselves to be descendants of Seth son of Adam. The status of the Mandaeans became an issue for the Abbasid al-Qahir Billah. To avoid further investigation by the authorities, the Mandaeans paid a bribe of 50,000 dinars and were left alone. It appears that the Mandaeans were even exempt from paying the jizya, otherwise imposed upon protected non-Muslims. Late Persian and Ottoman periods. Early contact with Europeans came about in the mid-16th century, when Portuguese missionaries encountered Mandaeans in southern Iraq and controversially designated them Christians of St. John. In the next centuries, Europeans became more acquainted with the Mandaeans and their religion. The Mandaeans suffered persecution under the Khayar rule in the 1780s. The dwindling community was threatened with complete annihilation when a cholera epidemic broke out in Shushtar and half of its inhabitants died. The entire Mandaean priesthood perished and Mandaeism was restored due only to the efforts of few learned men such as Yahya Bayram. Another danger threatened the community in 1870 when the local governor of Shushtar massacred the Mandaeans against the will of the Shah. As a result of these events, the Mandaeans retired to the more inaccessible central marshes of Iraq, modern Iraq and Iran following the First World War. The Mandaeans were still largely living in rural areas in the lower parts of British-protected Iraq and Iran. Owing to the rise of Arab nationalism, Mandaeans were Arabized at an accelerated rate, especially during the 1950s and 60s. The Mandaeans were also forced to abandon their stands on the cutting of hair and forced military service, which are strictly prohibited in Mandaeanism. The 2003 Iraq War brought more troubles to the Mandaeans, as the security situation deteriorated. Many members of the Mandaean community, who were known as goldsmiths, were targeted by criminal gangs for ransoms. The rise of Islamic extremism forced thousands to flee the country, after they were given the choice of conversion or death. It is estimated that around 90% of Iraqi Mandaeans were either killed or have fled after the American-led invasion. The Mandaeans of Iran live chiefly in Ahvaz, Iranian Khuzestan, but have moved as a result of the Iraq-Iran war to other cities such as Tehran, Karaj and Shiraz. The Mandaeans, who were traditionally considered as people of the book, lost this status after the Islamic Revolution. Local authorities in Iranian Islamic Republic are known to encourage harassment and persecution of the Mandaeans. Population: Mandaeans in Iraq. The pre-Iraq War, Iraqi Mandaean community was centered on Baghdad. Mandaean emigration from Iraq began during Saddam Hussein's rule, but accelerated greatly after the American-led invasion and subsequent occupation. Since the invasion, Mandaeans, like other Iraqi ethno-religious minorities, have been subjected to violence, including murders, kidnappings, rapes, evictions, and forced conversions. Mandaeans, like many other Iraqis, have also been targeted for kidnapping since many worked as goldsmiths. Mandaeism is pacifistic and forbids its adherents from carrying weapons. Many Iraqi Mandaeans have fled the country in the face of this violence, and the Mandaean community in Iraq faces extinction. Out of the over 60,000 Mandaeans in Iraq in the early 1990s, fewer than 5,000 remain there, as of early 2007. More than 80% of Iraqi Mandaeans were refugees in Syria and Jordan as a result of the Iraq War. Iranian Mandaeans. The number of Iranian Mandaeans is a matter of dispute. In 2009, there were an estimated 5,000 and 10,000 Mandaeans in Iran, according to the Associated Press, whereas Al Arabiya has put the number of Iranian Mandaeans as high as 60,000 in 2011. Until the Iranian Revolution, Mandaeans had mainly been concentrated in the Khuzestan province, where the community used to exist by side with the local Arab population. They had mainly been practicing the profession of goldsmith, passing it from generation to generation. After the fall of the Shah, its members faced increased religious discrimination, and many sought a new home in Europe and the Americas. In Iran, the Ghozi-Nesh law has the effect of prohibiting Mandaeans from fully participating in civil life. This law and other Ghozi-Nesh provisions make access to employment, education. These laws are regularly applied to discriminate against religious and ethnic groups that are not officially recognized, such as the Mandaeans, Ahle-Haq, and Baha'i. In 2002, the U.S. State Department granted Iranian Mandaeans protective refugee status. Since then, roughly 1,000 have emigrated to the U.S., now residing in cities such as San Antonio, Texas, On the other hand, the Mandaean community in Iran has increased over the last decade, because of the exodus from Iraq of the main Mandaean community, which used to be 60,000–70,000 strong. Other countries in the Middle East following the Iraq War, the Mandaean community dispersed throughout the Middle East. Living as refugees, the Mandaeans in Jordan number 49 families, while in Syria there are as many as 1,250 families. Some Mandaeans might also have reached the Gulf countries. Diaspora. There are small Mandaean diaspora populations in Sweden, Australia, the USA, the UK, and Canada. Sweden became a popular destination because a Mandaean community existed there before the war, and the Swedish government has a liberal asylum policy toward Iraqis. Of the 7,000 Mandaeans in Sweden, 1,500 live in Södertälje. The scattered nature of the Mandaean diaspora has raised fears among Mandaeans for the religion's survival. Mandaeism has no provision for conversion, and the religious status of Mandaeans who marry outside the faith and their children is disputed. The contemporary status of the Mandaeans has prompted a number of American intellectuals and civil rights activists to call upon the U.S. government to extend refugee status to the community. In 2007, the New York Times ran an op-ed piece in which Swarthmore professor Nathaniel Deutsch called for the Bush administration to take immediate action to preserve the community. The United States didn't set out to eradicate the Mandaeans, one of the oldest, smallest and least understood of the many minorities in Iraq. This extinction in the making has simply been another unfortunate and entirely unintended consequence of our invasion of Iraq, though that will be of little comfort to the Mandaeans, whose 2,000-year-old culture is in grave danger of disappearing from the face of the earth. When American forces invaded in 2003, there were probably 60,000 Mandaeans in Iraq. Today, fewer than 5,000 remain. Of the mere 500 Iraqi refugees who were allowed into the United States from April 2003 to April 2007, only a few were Mandaeans. Despite the Bush administration's commitment to let in 7,000 refugees in the fiscal year that ended September 30, 2007, fewer than 2,000, including just 3 Iraqi Mandaean families, entered the country. If all Iraqi Mandaeans are granted privileged status and allowed to enter the United States in significant numbers, it may just be enough to save them and their ancient culture from destruction. If not, after 2,000 years of history, of persecution and tenacious survival, the last Gnostics will finally disappear, victims of an extinction inadvertently set into motion by our nation's negligence in Iraq. Nathaniel Deutsch, professor of religion, Swarthmore College, October 7, 2007. Iraqi Mandaeans were given refugee status by the U.S. State Department in 2007. Since then around 1,200 have entered the U.S. Religion. Mandaeans are a closed ethno-religious community, practicing Mandaeism, which is a Gnostic religion with a strongly dualistic worldview. Its adherents revere Adam, Abel, Seth, Enosh, Noah, Shem, Aram and especially John the Baptist, but reject Abraham, Moses and Jesus of Nazareth. The Mandaeans group existence into 2 main categories: light and dark. They have a dualistic view of life, which encompasses both good and evil. All good is thought to have come from the world of light, and all evil is considered to be a product of the world of darkness. In relation to the body-mind dualism coined by Descartes, Mandaeans consider the body, and all material, worldly things, to have come from the dark, while the soul is a product of the light world. Mandaeans believe the world of light is ruled by a heavenly being, known by many names, such as Life, Lord of Greatness, Great Mind, or King of Light. This being is so great, vast, and incomprehensible that there are no words to fully depict how awesome life is. It is believed that an innumerable number of beings manifested from the light surround life and perform cultic acts of worship to praise and honor this great being. They inhabit worlds separate from the light world and are commonly referred to as emanations from first life. Their names include second, third, and fourth life. The Lord of Darkness is the ruler of the world of darkness and was formed from dark waters representing chaos. A main defender of the dark world is a giant monster, or dragon, with the name an evil female ruler also inhabits the dark world, known as Spirit. The Mandaeans believe these malevolent rulers created demonic offspring who consider themselves the owners of the 7 and 12. According to Mandaean beliefs, the world is a mixture of light and dark created by the demiurge with help from dark powers, such as Ruha. The 7, and the 12. Adam's body was fashioned by these dark beings, however, his soul was a direct creation from the light. Therefore, many Mandaeans believe the human soul is capable of salvation because it originates from the light world. The soul, sometimes referred to as the inner Adam or hidden Adam, is in dire need of being rescued from the dark, so it may ascend into the heavenly realm of the light world. Baptisms are a central theme in Mandaeanism, believed to be necessary for the redemption of the soul. Mandaeans do not perform a single baptism, as in religions such as Christianity or Judaism. Rather, they view baptisms as a ritualistic act capable of bringing the soul closer to salvation. Therefore, Mandaeans get baptized a numerous number of times during their lives. John the Baptist is a key figure for the Mandaeans. They even consider him to have been a Mandaean himself. John is referred to as a disciple, or priest, most known for the countless number of baptisms he performed, which helped close the immense gap between the soul and salvation. Today, many Mandaeans are refugees and are not willing to accept converts into their religion. Sunday, as in other religious traditions, is their holy day, centered largely on mythical beliefs. The Mandaeans usually acknowledge only mythological redeemers and deny historical ones, such as Jesus Christ. Interestingly, many Mandaeans consider Jesus an apostate Mandaean, and today they tell a story of how a Mandaean messenger went to Jerusalem and tried to expose Jesus Christ as a liar and false prophet. Language. The Mandaic language is an Eastern dialect of Aramaic, although its alphabet is unique. It has mainly survived as a liturgical language. Bibliography. Buckley, Joran Jacobson, The Mandaeans. Ancient Texts and Modern People, Oxford University Press, ISBN 9780195153859. Rudolph, Kurt, Mandaeism Volume 21 of Iconography of Religions, Brill, ISBN 9789004052529. Deutsch, Nathaniel, Guardians of the Gate. Angelic Viceregency in Late Antiquity, Brill, ISBN 9789004109094. Mandaean Human Rights Group, Mandaean Human Rights Annual Report, ANA, E.S. Drower, The Mandaeans of Iraq and Iran, E.S. Drower, The Secret Adam, A Study of Nazarian Gnosis. Edwin M. Yamauchi, Mandaic Incantation Texts. Edwin M. Yamauchi, Gnostic Ethics and Mandaean Origins. Kurt Rudolph, Gnosis. The Nature and History of Gnosticism, pages 343 to 366. Edmund de Lupieri, The Mandaeans. The Last Gnostics. Joran Jacobson Buckley, The Great Stem of Souls. Reconstruction Mandaean History. McGrath, The First Baptists, The Last Gnostics. James McGrath on the Mandaeans.